just actually don't fast forward at all because we are also live on YouTube. We have both platforms going. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Martinis with Scott. Joe D'Odonnell. That's too hard for me to say, but welcome to the Instagram live stream, and you on YouTube. Welcome to you as well. Martinis with Scott, episode 146. We're just doing our midday touch base. I hope all is well on this Monday in the beginning of the week. If anybody has a topic they want me to cover or just want to say hello, please throw in your comments here on either stream. And if not, I'm going to talk about persuasion, and I'm going to talk about Dominion voting systems versus Mike Lindell, and specifically a comment that was put forward on the YouTube side. I don't know when it was, probably last week. I missed it, although the shows that he was commenting on, he or her were commenting on, was a few weeks ago. All right, nobody has any other topics for me they want me to address, so I'm going to jump in. And again, welcome everybody. So I did 2 Martinis with Scott's. I don't know what episodes they were. You'll have to go look them up on the Martinis with Scott channel on YouTube. About Dominion voting systems, if that's the proper corporate name, I forget, versus Mike Lindell, the pillow fellow from the US. And before I get started on this, I want to remind you, this is not a politics show. Vladimir, thank you for joining on the Instagram live stream. This is not a politics show. I'm not trying to take sides. I don't care one way or the other. I'm using this as an example to hit our target, which is how to improve your business, how to turn around your business, how to turn around your life in some instances. And that's what we're about on Martinis with Scott. But if I can use a current example of what's going on, what's in the press that everybody knows about, sometimes that's helpful to set the stage and to make an example. So if you're here listening to this, I know none of you on live stream are doing with this, but if you're listening to this later on record, you think to yourself, hey, this is a good chance to troll somebody or to make my political point of view known. As I've told you before, piss off. We're not interested. We're here to talk about business and being a success. All right, those are the ground rules. I did a couple shows, and here is a listener comment that I want to talk about from a person named Fallen, Fallen. And so this is how to make a respectful comment on YouTube when you disagree with somebody, respectful and thoughtful, I thought. But this person, I'm going to go, I keep thinking this is, I don't know if this is male or female, so I should stop saying that. But Fallen thinks that we disagree. I don't think we do disagree. I think that I need to reinforce the points that I was making before. So he says, or she says, even if we go to Discovery, the site has been updating in the background. Thank you for that notification. Even if we go to Discovery in the Dominion case, by the way, if you don't know the context for this, Dominion Voting Systems are the people, which it turns out is a Toronto company, where I happen to be today. Is a Toronto company, at least according to their corporate profile, and they build, sell, provide the voting systems to, I assume to a number of countries. I have no idea, but certainly to the U.S. They were the subject of complaint in the Biden-Trump election. There was allegations from one side against the other side with respect to voting integrity, and Dominion got dragged into this, rightly or wrongly, and they sued a number of parties, including Mike Lindell. They recently sued Fox News, and it's billions of dollars that are being claimed in the lawsuit. I'm not commenting on the merits of it one way or the other. So Fallen says, even if we go to Discovery in the Dominion case, and that the information somehow becomes public from a private lawsuit, I know what you're trying to say. Lawsuits are not private. Lawsuits are public. The pleadings themselves and what goes on in the court case are public. As a business owner, I'm not saying Fallen's a business owner, but that's what this show is about. If you're involved in some sort of litigation, you need to assume everything is public. I know that the private discoveries may or the actual discovery itself, the interlocutories in the U.S., I think they're called interrogatories, are not are not, specifically made public, but you need to assume they are if you're a party in one of these suits. Who will believe what comes out? If one side can't even believe the high-standing members of their own party saying the election was performed in the most secure way in history, how would skeptics believe court documents that disagree with their point of view? They won't. They won't believe it. That is the entire point. I agree with you, Fala. There's the entire point of confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is that you have a point of view and you look for facts that support your point of view. You disregard facts that do not support your point of view. And if you're pushed into it, if you're pushed into cognitive dissonance, which is an inequity between the facts and your point of view, well, then you start spinning the facts to meet your point of view. What you don't do is look at facts and change your mind. That's just not a thing. It's never been a thing. It's not how human brains work, and that's kind of the whole point of why I raised this lawsuit as an example of what not to do if you're a business owner, if you're Dominion, in crisis management. What's interesting is that we no longer live in a country where we can make opinion about fact. We've never lived in a country where we can make opinion about fact. What we have is we have, through social media and through a division of the news networks, we have more diverse facts than we've ever had before. We have outright lying, and so we're seeing that more and more. But it doesn't change how humans work, and humans don't work on fact. They work on confirmation bias and pattern recognition. Very important. We literally have two competing sets of fact. And okay, so I'm going to skip his whole middle long paragraph here because it gets into the Spanish War, and I don't know how old Fallen is, but I wasn't around for the Spanish War. So he says, what I really think is that the conclusions you made in this video are far-reaching without fact. I do believe you're arguing in good faith and honestly care about finding the truth. Maybe we could start there. Don't stop doing YouTube. You have a good discussion voice, and even if I disagree with your point of view. Well, thank you for that, Fallen. Here's why I wanted to do this show today. I want to take one more and perhaps my last shot at this, because I'm not trying to cover the story. I'm not trying to cover the lawsuit. I'm trying to make a few points, and I would suggest to you, Fallen, that you may not disagree with these points. If I may, with respect, because your comment was respectful, if I may, I think you also have some confirmation bias on this because you think that I'm talking about voting integrity. I'm not. You think that I'm talking about left versus right. I'm not. What I'm talking about is an example of maybe what a company ought not do, even if the company believes they're 100% correct. Let's just say Dominion Voting Systems is 100% the most shining beacon of integrity on the face of the earth. Let's just use that as a working hypothesis. What should they not do? Okay, that's what I was trying to talk about. So my point number one, in fact, was more generic, is that if you're a business owner, if you're an entrepreneur, lawsuits are a part of business. Lawsuits are a part of competition. The higher you get up on the food chain, the higher you go up in the hierarchy, the more lawsuits you have, and the more complicated they become. I covered a Canadian, Toronto-based hedge fund private equity lawsuit a couple of weeks ago just for fun, and just the crazy story that was behind it. And I use that as an example of how crazy these lawsuits can get. You can go back and check that out on Martinis with Scott as well if you want. But that's point number one. Too many entrepreneurs, small businesses, they go around, they think everything's fine, and then they get into a lawsuit and they're just slammed. They're just completely sideswiped by this whole issue. And they hope it's the only time this ever happens in their whole business career and life. And I'm just telling you, you want to be a success, you need to be able to deal with this sort of combativeness of the negativity that comes along with that. And secondly, which was my second point, is you need to turn that negativity into a positive, into a tool, because lawsuits never go the way you think. They just don't, ever. When I do turnarounds for a living, let me give a wave here to some of our new joiners. On Instagram, I do turnarounds for a living, and when you're in the turnaround business, you get into a lot of lawsuits because you're walking to a company, they haven't paid people, you need to restructure, you're going to end up in court. You'd be a fool. You'd be a fool to walk into court thinking you got this right and the judge is going to side with me and I'm going to get everything I want. That's not what happens, okay? That's not what happens. It never happens because we all have our own confirmation bias. That's the theme of this. So you need to think larger than the specific dispute. You need to have different planning, and that kind of leads me to this whole Dominion versus Lindell, Dominion versus everybody case. Whereas if you're in crisis, and I think we can all admit, even Fallen here can admit that Dominion Voting was in crisis. I mean, they got dragged into the public arena. I'm sure they didn't want to be in the public arena. They feel like they're being slandered. They feel like they're being libeled. They feel like their integrity is being challenged. And I would suggest it's even bigger than that, because I don't think it's just them. I think it's the entire integrity of electronic voting that was being challenged. And I'm not saying it's wrong, and I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying that it's a fact. We can all agree that the electronic voting is being challenged, was being challenged. And so whether there's any evidence of that or not, they were dragged into it, and that is a fact. So now, if you're running Dominion, you have a crisis. You have a crisis. So what are you going to do? So what they chose to do was to push back hard and sue everybody that they thought was relevant, and to put huge numbers on it, billions of dollars of claims for damages, even though my understanding is they're a relatively smaller company. Let's call them a good mid-sized company by Canadian standards, which is small business in the US. And so they're suing for billions of dollars. And what have they accomplished? If we can agree that public trust is critical, public trust in the voting system is critical for the industry, not just for Dominion, for the industry as a whole. If we can agree that that's the case, where is the profit? I have my phone on Do Not Disturb, yet people keep calling in anyways. I'm not sure how that works. Where is the profit in keeping this narrative going that there was a problem, an integrity problem with the voting system? It makes no sense. That is bad persuasion. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're right or you're wrong, as you have pointed out, Fallen. The facts don't matter. Okay, what matters is how you feel about it, the pattern recognition, the confirmation bias. And what matters is what Dominion has effectively done in this crisis is they've bought into the narrative: integrity, no integrity; disclosure, no disclosure. And they've doubled down. And I promise you that 3 years from now, we're going to still be talking about Dominion voting. We're going to be talking about election integrity. We're going to be talking about electronic voting systems as a whole, when there's no need for that. There's no need for that. And that's what Dominion has done. I think they've killed their entire industry, potentially, if they just keep on with this. And that is the executive decision. I'm not saying they're not right. I'm just saying that is the executive decision, which to me is a wrong move in crisis. What could they have done? This was my fourth point. Change the narrative. Change the narrative. How cool would it be for Dominion, if you're the CEO of Dominion, how cool would it be if we were talking about a year from now, and 2 years from now, 3 years from now, if the discussion was electronic voting is not only full of integrity, is not only the right way to do it, but is the only system for elections that make any sense. It is the only election system process that has integrity. Everything else is just a mess. How cool would it be if that was the narrative? Could they have impacted that? For sure they could. They could have taken that same enthusiasm that they had for the lawsuits, and they could have changed the narrative. They could have set up a commission to study exactly that narrative. Sorry, I keep getting notifications on my phone here that I'm turning off on Instagram. They could have set up a commission. They could have made it bipartisan. They could have made it transparent. They could have lifted their kimono, so to speak, had their code reviewed if they wanted to, but they also could have studied in general all elections, and driven the conclusion that I think they would want to drive, which is that this is the right way to go. It's most efficient, it's cost effective, it's timely, and it's full of integrity and transparency. They should have changed the narrative. What you don't want to do, Fallen, is exactly what we're doing right now. I do a show about it. You respond. we're talking about election integrity, and we're talking about Dominion voting, they're just dragging this out. That was my point. You're going to be in lawsuits. They're not going to go the way you think. There's a persuasive element to anything that's public when you're in crisis management, and you need to control the narrative in a way that works for you, and your stakeholders. Thank you for listening. This was just a general, it was just a midday touch base on Martinis with Scott, and I wanted to thank Fallen for the comment on YouTube. Anybody have anything else they want me to talk about before I sign off on Instagram or YouTube? Anyone want to say hi? Got a question? I think we're done for today. Thank you so much for listening. This has been Martinis with Scott.